All right, I'm live on X, YouTube, Rumble. What else? Where am I? Else am I live? I'm about to be live. I got to click the go live button on Instagram. On Instagram now, on Rockfin. I think there's one I'm missing. But I believe we are live across the platforms that we're live to right now. Doing a quick show. It's going to be shorter than usual. I'm testing my equipment for our later show because it was a system-wide breakdown earlier and nothing would work. But it appears to be back up and running right now. But I wanted to do a test run before Ian and I do another show at 8:45. So this will probably be like a quick 30-minute burst or a 3-hour burst, like every 30-minute show I plan ends up being. Nevertheless, we're going to do this. Thank you. I'm glad you could hear me, Stoner. I needed to make sure that audio was working, so I'm very appreciative of that there. So let's dive right into this. What's up, Groby? Media implies MAGA murdered CEO in New York. South Korea portrayed as a harbinger of doom. This is Propaganda Report. I'm Brad Binkley, and there's a theme in the news today. Well, there's a theme in the news every single day that says, be afraid, be very afraid of everything around you and everything you can't see and don't know because it's coming for you. And you need every day it's like that, but today this fear theme is a little more intensified than usual. And I think it's going to continue to be that way and that we're just going to have to get used to it. Maybe even see how creative they get with their fear-mongering appeals, as many of them have gone dull and don't have the impact that they used to have. So they're going to be trying new things. And we might be seeing some of the new things they're trying today. All right. First story that fits into this theme here, the one that everybody's talking about. The assassination of the CEO of United Health, Brian Thompson, who I'm sure, as you know, was murdered yesterday morning around 6 or 7 on video on the streets of New York City outside of the Manhattan Hotel where he was staying, and where on that same day, United Health was scheduled to be later having the company's shareholder day at a big weekend event that they were having. They put that on hold after he was killed. Probably a good idea. Investor confidence might not be where you want it to be right after the CEO was murdered, right out in front of where the conference was supposed to happen. First of all, I don't know what happened up there. I'm not going to claim to know what happened up there. All I know is what people are speculating, what I can deduce based on the coverage that we're being provided, which is never going to be the full truth. And I also know what kind of things happen in the aftermath of crimes like this, as well as how the media is currently reporting this story in a way to further this fear narrative that they have no actual evidence from the crime scene to support. But that's what they do. That's what they always do. They only give wide coverage, nonstop, to stories that, regardless of what they are, that they can frame to the public in a way that fits this broader narrative that they're propagating. There's crazy stuff that happens in this country all the time that gets no attention because there's not an angle to spin it because it's about that broad narrative. If you want to learn more about that approach, read Edward Bernays' books. He lays it out pretty clear, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here are a few more details that we've been told about this story. You guys let me know. What's up, Brucey? If it gets solved in the middle of me talking. If they just solved this thing right now, then I just have no more material to talk about. So don't solve it yet. But the internet sleuths we're told are on the job, though. We'll get to that in a minute. Nevertheless, we're being told that... Hold on a second. I lost my place there. All right, I'll give you these details, and then I'll tell you what that narrative I'm talking about is and what actually worries me about this story moving forward, because I was kind of expecting something like this, to be honest with you. I'll tell you why in a minute. I'm sure you've seen the video, or at least heard about it anyway. But here's what happened: the gunman was masked. He like went to Starbucks to have a coffee and have a laugh with the barista. I don't know if there's a purple-haired barista or the gender fluidity of the barista, but he was having a laugh at Starbucks in his hoodie and his mask, I think before the killing. And then the killer, who obviously knew where this guy was going to be because he was probably aware of when the shareholder meeting was. I don't know how he knew that the guy was going to be like walking. Maybe he has like a routine where he walks early in the morning. The guy seemed to be prepared is what it looks like. But when Thompson walked by, approaching the hotel, the assassin just stepped out onto the sidewalk and casually or calmly shot the guy multiple times with a gun that he had put a silencer on that apparently jammed, and he fixed it, and then he kind of stumbled across the street, and he's gone, and they can't find him. That's it. He's gone. And there was another person standing at the little swivel door going into the hotel who saw what was going on and was like, shit, and was like, I'm getting the hell out of here, and ran. I think it was a woman. I don't know. But after killing this guy, when he walked across the street, stumbled across the street, he did what you would expect any assassin on the run to do, is he made his getaway on an electric bike. On an electric bike, this guy got away, and unfortunately for cops, it wasn't one of those Lyft rental city bikes that are all over New York that are easy to track, because Lyft told police that the electric getaway bike was not one of theirs. It's not one of theirs, which a lot of people thought it was one of theirs. There's a lot of people saying, why don't you just track the e-bike? He had to have the app, and he had to put his credit card information in. After murdering the guy, he had to walk over to the e-bike, scan the barcode. But first, download the app if he doesn't have it. Scan the barcode. Make sure his credit card information is up to date, and rent the bike. So just track them on the app. Case closed. I mean, this is what the online sleuths have been talking about, and some people in the news, which is really a very stupid thing. You got to check that, obviously. But that's kind of wouldn't that be crazy if that is what happened? If this guy planned this murder as much as it appears that he planned. He planned for absolutely everything except the getaway. He kills the guy. He thinks everything's gone according to plan, and then he suddenly realizes, oh shit, I forgot one thing. How am I getting out of here? And he's standing there thinking he's cooked, only to see out of the corner of his eye, in an alley across the street, oh my God, it's an available Lyft electric bike. Shit, do I have my credit card? To which he then stumbled away and escaped. But it's not a Lyft e-bike, because Lyft said it's not theirs, and the cop said, we believe that this bike, this e-bike, is unmarked. It's like an unmarked gun. There's no serial number on it. Maybe you got the what do they rub the numbers off with on guns? Maybe did the same thing to the e-bike. The e-bike was part of the getaway, obviously. And he either put it there before or somebody else did. I think it's possible, and this is just speculation, obviously. I could have no actual proof of this, but if there was an e-bike in a strategically perfect location that enabled him to escape cops after murdering somebody in broad daylight on camera, and that e-bike still has not been found, it was probably put in a place that was easy to get to a path that avoided cameras. So, and because I don't think there's any image or video of him coming, I don't think we see a video of him like riding up on the stupid e-bike. I hate those bikes, by the way. They're a nuisance. And I don't think we see the guy just casually riding up to murder somebody on an e-bike. I could be wrong about that. Am I wrong? File, thank you. How do I not remember file? File the numbers off. I'm so stupid. I can't even remember the word file. I appreciate that. Like the Son of Sam tracked down with a parking lot. Yeah, MAGAs are always wearing masks and drinking lattes. I saw somebody with a mask on in Publix today. I shouted MAGA right in their face. So, yeah, tell me if I'm wrong, if you guys have found any other details on this. But I'm pretty sure they didn't see the e-bike on any of the camera footage where they tracked this guy until after. Maybe he put it there beforehand, but I don't know. He could have had an accomplice. Who knows? I guess you don't necessarily need one. But if you sit a bike there that's not a public bike and you're in New York City, how long is it going to be there before it gets stolen? It would seem like the bike would have to be put there for the getaway pretty close to when the murder was about to happen to make sure he doesn't get robbed of his e-bike after killing the person. That would have been irony, right? He kills somebody, thinks he's getting away. Somebody stole his gay bike. So that's why I bet the cops are looking for somebody who helped him. And they're probably, what's up, Nate? Probably trying to figure out. You're right, dude. My hard drive is full. It's totally full. There's too much news to remember specifics of anything anymore. And it makes your brain drive full. So yeah, I bet that's what they're looking at. I have no idea. But the other weird detail I'm sure you heard about is the bullet casings. The bullet casings had words written on them. What were it said, deny, defend, and depose on bullet casings found at the crime scene. I don't think all three words were written on one bullet casing or all the bullet casings. I think there was three and each word was written on one of them or something like that. Which that's kind of odd, right? That seems like something that police investigators would only find if somebody intentionally left them there for them to find, you know? And what did he write it with like a Sharpie? What? I would like to see a photograph of this. If it's true, show me the words written on the bullet casings. I want to see this guy's handwriting. I mean, that's a small area to write something on. Some people have like bricks for hands and they can't draw small. So this guy might have delicate little hands that enables him to write words on bullets and then leave them at crime scenes, either to reveal to everybody pretty strongly what his motive might be, or send a signal to everybody else, or, as I said, leave a red herring to misdirect police. It's all retarded, honestly. What's up, Forest Mommy? Forest Mommy, I have a story for the show later today that you might be interested in. You can join us if you want to talk about it. I'll message you after this. Basically, none of this stuff makes sense. And the reason none of this stuff makes sense is because in the aftermath of crimes like this, the police doesn't tell the public everything. They're not going to tell us everything they know. They communicate to the media not because they're trying to be fully transparent with the public, because they're worried about whether or not we can figure out what the hell happened. What they use the media for is to try and deceive the person who they are still pursuing, because they think, and which is probably true, that the killer is paying attention to the news so that they can make sure they don't get caught or try not to get caught. So the media is used to misdirect the killer. And the police often play dumb by withholding certain facts that they do have from the public. So the killer's like, oh my God, I think I'm getting away with it. These guys are doofuses. And then lets his guard down or her guard down or their guard down and does something that exposes himself and makes it a little easier to catch them. That's why I don't think any of us really have any idea about what happened at this. There's probably so much that they aren't telling us. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that what they've told us is all that they know. It's not. It's just not. But I can tell you what the media is saying about it, which is the thing that worries me about it. And it was my initial thought when I heard about this story. I went, oh my God, this is it. This is the false flag that I've been talking about. False flag-like event. I'm not saying it's a false flag, but this is the type of event that I've been talking about I expect could happen after Trump won, to blame what they will say are now emboldened MAGA extremists because they feel they can do anything and terrorize people now that Trump has won. So all the crazy people coming out and just, killing all the people they perceive to have been their oppressors or to have wronged them in the Biden years. And they're going to round up your grandmother, your lesbian grandmother's getting rounded up. They want everybody to think, they want liberals to think that this killing is a sign of things to come because of Trump. And that even though this was a wealthy CEO of a hated company by many, that they could be next. It starts with the CEO. Just like one person leaves the country, and then all of a sudden, billionaires are afraid. Everything they're doing is like, even billionaires are afraid to leave the country. And now we have somebody who's killed, he's a CEO of a company. Maybe they should leave the country because they're afraid of Trump. What about the 75-year-old grandmother? What about all the old lesbians that Trump is going to murder after he rapes when he gets into office? You better get the hell out of here too, or some MAGA dude with a hoodie on just might blow your head off in front of the hotel in New York. This is actually what they're trying to put into people's heads using stories like this. And they're doing like I thought I was maybe being a little bit making connections that weren't there yet when I started thinking about this, that the media wasn't spinning it in that direction yet, until I saw this Wall Street Journal story. Let me find it. I'm not going to put it up on screen because I don't want everything to short out like it's been doing. But this Wall Street Journal story, it's like exactly what I expected the coverage of it would be. It's an article about how this guy being killed is a wake-up call for the CEOs of other big corporations because of the politically charged environment that we're all currently living in, and how people are targeting and threatening them because they're blaming these CEOs for the oppression or the problems or the things they don't like about in their life. Which it's interesting because that is really not the personality of the majority of people who support Trump, not even close. They want liberals to think that. But people who support Trump are like fun-loving entrepreneurial types who are generally pretty kind to people. Look at the bold lib chick who is now being called an operative by Kinzinger or whoever, and is being blocked on all of the or the Blue Sky. That girl, you can go look at her YouTube page. She's been making like lesbian, like progressive calls, videos for like 15 years. She's not an undercover Republican. She's just a good troll. And right now, all of the conservatives and the MAGA people who actually like her are being far, far nicer to her than the other liberals. It is not characteristic of the average Trump supporter to be like, I'm mad, I'm going to go murder people. Yeah, they want people to be held to account, but they're well aware that the scrutiny is going to be on their actions, especially now that Trump is president, because those who still have power to do stuff before Trump becomes president and then do stuff outside of power, the conspiratorial stuff, which they actually like doing, the activists do stuff to them when he's in power. Like, they know that anything they do could be portrayed as the worst possible portrayal anybody can make. And so they're cautious. I know there's crazy people and radicals on every side that support every candidate. I'm talking about the majority. I haven't met all of them. I've been to probably 15 rallies for both sides combined this past year. 6 or 7 campuses and other events where people who were very enthusiastic and emotional about politics were. And that's what I've seen. I haven't seen them ready to murder CEOs, Okay, so yeah, I got to do this quick editing. So here's what this article says. The headline of the article, where is it? Okay. Yeah, so the headline is about, like I said, the other CEOs are now worried, and they're amping up their private security because they could also be walking around freely without enough protection like this guy was. and some crazy person who they're going to imply in a second is MAGA could just walk up and blow their brains out if they don't lock it down too, because of the, hostile political environment that Trump winning has created, which I haven't seen. Have you guys seen a really hot? Have you seen people in MAGA hats just shouting queer at Starbucks baristas? And fag! Like, they don't even go to Starbucks to order any food or drink. They just go to wear a MAGA hat and no shirt and shout fag at the barista. Have you guys seen that? I haven't seen that. Not saying it's not happening, just I haven't seen it. It goes on to say in the article, this is crazy to me, because they don't care. They know what they're implying, and they don't care. It says, companies had already been beefing up security efforts before Wednesday's attack, because in recent years, divisive political and social issues, including support for diversity and inclusion efforts, triggered threats against executives. I'll read that one more time. This is in the Wall Street Journal's article about this murder. There's been no evidence to suggest that it's somebody who loves Trump and feels they can kill liberals or pharmaceutical heads without consequence. None at all. But this is what the Wall Street Journal puts in their article, knowing the impact it will have on the audience that they've already primed to view everything that they see in the world around them as some dark thing targeting them and people like them caused by Trump. It says companies had already been beefing up security efforts before Wednesday's attack because in recent years, divisive political and social issues, including support for diversity and inclusion efforts, triggered threats against executives. This is pretty much saying directly, hardcore MAGA extremists are the ones threatening the CEOs and the ones who might kill them if they don't beef up their security. What other way is there to interpret that? Suggesting that CEOs, like the guy who was just murdered, are under threat of also being murdered because of the DEI efforts they implemented in their companies that MAGA people think they should kill for. I mean, this is crazy to me. I want to know if the person who wrote it even realizes. I think they have to realize that. Well, I didn't say that, and they do that shit. I didn't say that MAGA people are the ones. Well, no, but you definitely implied it, and you know that the brainwashed people that you've been abusing with your lies for years are going to think exactly that without you telling them that, because you have primed them to think everything is that. All you have to use is innuendo. This is, you get Wall Street Journal. I mean, it might as well be the Wall Street Journal. Groby. That's the thing. The Wall Street Journal, it's like one of the better fake news outlets. And it's saying stuff like this. Just how do you go home at night knowing that your job every day is to fearmonger the vulnerable, brainwashed activist who your company makes all its money off of? Your company makes no money unless all of those people live their lives in terror that you create. That's not real. What'd you do today, honey? Oh, I scared the shit out of like thousands of grandmothers who think Trump is going to rape them tomorrow and then kill their favorite CEO afterward. It's just like, I know they don't think about it like that, but that's what they're doing. And yet, the idea that people, not saying media or journalists, but people who have evidence of criminal activity like Reid Hoffman, talked about on the show yesterday, the idea that an investigation might be opened up into about what somebody like that's been doing for years and getting away with, the idea that that is a form of political oppression and targeting of your political enemies by weaponizing the justice system, it's the biggest gaslight you've ever seen in the history of mankind. just control of this media apparatus, portraying all of these villains as victims, and the horde whose brains they've poisoned they have no idea. They have no idea. I actually think that's part of why Blue Sky took off when it did. There was some Council on Foreign Relations discussions about that and about the even further segregation of, political ideologies into silos. And with all of these people leaving Twitter, going over to Blue Sky, where everybody says the same thing except for a couple of trolls like us, they have actually no idea of any other concept of reality. None. It's like indivisible activists who get all their information from their indivisible emails and whose actions in the real world are dictated by the activist trainings that they go to that are conducted by these organizers who are paid by George Soros and Reid Hoffman-like figures to tell these people what's true, what's not, and what they should be offended about. These people have no outside information that is actually helping them realize that they're being completely conned and used as a pawn at their expense to the benefit of those who organize them and those who pay the organizers. They have no idea. Because there's nothing penetrating that stranglehold. So you separate these people, put them on the Blue Sky. I know a lot of the fun was fighting on X, but you could still have some conversation. There's still a few people on X who will have a conversation that haven't left yet. But the complete fracturing of reality is kind of what might end up being what the Blue Sky, or what is it, Blue Sky? Is that what it's called? What that represents with X. It was already like that, but that might have been the final severing to prevent all truth from ever even getting into the peripheral vision of these people who left X and went to Blue Sky. They'll never see it. And that's not to say X always tells the truth. I gotta be honest with you. When I see a story on X, my default is to think that it's exaggerated and there's facts that are being left out and that it's also furthering a narrative. But I still look at it and then I go try and verify and find out what's true and what's not. I go on Blue Sky and I've been trying to do the same thing there. It's hard though. It's a lot of, butt hurt crying. It's just, it's not enjoyable. But like they're gonna get bored of each other, I think. Forest Mommy, LOL, progressives are in another reality. They only know to protect the regime. Yeah, they do only know to protect Pedo Sky. Yeah, so I think it's called Pedo Sky or Blue Cry. It's either Blue Cry or Pedo Sky. It's one of those two. I think maybe those were the two original names and they just combined them. And now it's inoculation. They used to talk about Brian Stelter on his stupid show on CNN he used to have, and the Council on Foreign Relations training and the Indivisible trainings. They used to talk about the need to inoculate the public from dangerous disinformation spread by right-wingers, conspiracy theorists, anti-vax people. And that inoculation was designed to make them aware of what arguments might be made against theirs and make them unconsciously know immediately why that argument is a lie. Pre-bunking. You guys remember the pre-bunking shit? That. You get everybody on Blue Sky, though, and it becomes a little easier to control that. That's not to say there aren't a lot of things, some things that are a little shady about X, too. We all seen some of those. How are your X payments doing, by the way, everybody? I mean, unless you're Tiffany Fong, you're not doing well on X, probably. JC says they try a new PR campaign to push a new social media platform every few years. Remember that I'm quitting and joining Threads. Yeah, I do. I remember the Threads thing. Yeah, the Threads is still there. There's a lot of people on that one. It's interesting that they shifted to Blue Sky. I was thinking about that the other day because they all are already on Threads, but they made Blue Sky the one, which has been around for a while. I'm not a stock person. I mean, as I say, I'm not going to recommend a stock, but I immediately started looking to see if Blue Sky was publicly traded and when it's going to be publicly traded. Because I might get in on some of that action a little bit because its popularity is fabricated. It's being insisted upon. Now, maybe they'll change their mind, but I think that's an opportunity there. I don't know if I wouldn't be able to live with myself. I mean, I would be able to live with myself, but I'd be like, I feel like shit because I bought some Blue Sky stock, but I sold it immediately. Not on Twitter or Blue Sky, but Substacks. Are you on Substacks? I look at Substacks every now and then. All right. Well, let me see if this article said anything else I want to share with you guys before I get out of here. It's just, I just don't get how people are able to, maybe they compartmentalize and they don't think about the consequences of the fact that they're scaring the shit out of people for a living about things that aren't true. They're trying to manifest this chaos. And they just have to probably be like, I'm just trying to take care of my family. I'm not thinking about that. I guess that's it. But one other quick story, and I'm just going to kind of go through the article because my notes got deleted because I'm a doofus while I was getting ready earlier. Another story that fits the same theme, and this is just the second one. There's like 8 stories today that are all different but are all framed in similar ways to portray, look out, everything we told you about Trump is about to happen. And hold on one second. Where's the freaking article? What is wrong with this thing? Oh, there it is. All right. Yeah. I was wondering why they were paying so much attention to this last night. This fear everything story that we're basically being told by the media that South Korea and their right-wing president, their Trump-like president, they've been paralleling, if that's a word, and portraying the South Korean president since he was elected 2 years ago as a right-wing authoritarian Trump-like figure. I've been pointing this out since the first day he took office because he's the guy in South Korea that I've told you guys about who ran a campaign where he used deep fakes instead of his real self. And then for his public appearances, he acted like his deep fake did because they were trying to appeal to younger people. And his opponent complained about it, the incumbent, and then his opponent did the same thing. So it was 2 deep fakes running against each other. And then the Trump-like deep fake president won. And now he's done something that the media is so happy about. I kind of actually thought some of the images they were showing of him talking about this were deep fakes, but that's another subject. I'm not certain about that. But here's what happened in South Korea that they want to make sure Democrats pay attention to and take note of and prepare themselves to have to emulate. Because in a few short months, the same thing is going to happen here. He declared martial law on his country last night where, oh, yeah, I got to look this up. I can't. Forgot my notes were deleted. Can you guys see that? Yeah. South Korea just gave Donald Trump a warning, says MSNBC. If his opponents are listening, swiftly and decisively rebutting would-be authoritarians works better than hoping it works out for the best. Notice that. Better than hoping it works out for the best. What they're referring to there in this article is he goes through this comparison. He lays out what the South Koreans did and how quickly they did it last night after, he declared martial law. And then he goes on to talk about, now look at January 6th. Compare this to not January 6th, but the aftermath of January 6th and how long it took Democrats to do anything to Trump. It took them like a week or two to even impeach to bring up articles of impeachment. It took them 6 weeks, 2 weeks after he was, or 2 or 3 weeks after he was already out of office, to even start the impeachment hearings. And by that time, out of sight, out of mind, not really, but that's the way they convey it, people lost their passion and enthusiasm for stopping authoritarianism. Well, maybe because your guy won, like stopping the authoritarianism of the guy who just lost or allegedly lost the presidency and went back to his private life. It makes no sense. It boggles the mind trying to make sense of their logic. But that's the trick. None of the people who actually believe it are trying to make sense of it. They pre-believe it. I'm a pre-believer. Pump me full of shit is basically what their audience is. And the idea is that was not the way to do it. Americans, Democrat, liberals over here, we tried our way to stop authoritarianism, and it failed. The South Koreans, however, stopped it in under 6 hours. And Democrats, you better be ready, and you better take note, because if you want to stop it, we need to do what they did when Trump does what we know he's going to do in just a few short months. That's the general gist of this article. I'll go through some of the specifics. Just before 11 p.m. local time Tuesday, South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol, I have no idea. Yoon, I'll call him Yoon, declared martial law in a televised address to the nation. Shortly after, General Park An-soo, the martial law commander, announced that all political activities would be banned and that all media and publications will be subject to the control of the martial law command. But then something special happened. Within 3 hours, lawmakers and protesters gathered outside the National Assembly as soldiers tried to bar the entrances. Notice the parallels, because they keep telling us Trump's going to use the military to round up his political opponents. Something he never said he was going to do. Soldiers tried to bar the entrances. Lee Jae-myung, the leader of the opposition Democrat Party, live-streamed himself climbing over a wall to enter the building. It's interesting. They're glorifying that activity that they imprisoned a bunch of people in 2021 for doing. Live-streamed himself, and within 5 hours, 190 legislators unanimously overturned Yoon's decree, which I'd be willing to bet had nothing to do with all of those people, those Democrats climbing over the wall. I bet it had nothing to do with that. But they want Democrats over here who are the most radicalized, they can get to do any direct protest action, to think that this is the type of thing that stopped it, so that they can then tell them when Trump's in office a bunch of stuff. They can say, Trump said this awful thing about how he's going to molest your lesbian grandmother and get her pregnant and force her to have a dozen babies before he deports her. And they'll say, oh my God, we have to stop him. They'll just believe it, and then they'll go to the Capitol and they'll do the stuff that they're being told here worked, even though I guarantee you that's not why. That's not why it happened. Let's see. And within 6 hours, the president of him announcing the power grab, Yoon made a second televised address, ending the declaration of martial law. By Wednesday afternoon, the opposition had introduced articles of impeachment against Yoon. Now, those articles of impeachment are for insurrection. They're for insurrection. He has a vote coming as early as Thursday. Then it says the heroics of South Korea's Democratic-led opposition were a welcome and riveting sight for supporters of democracy around the world. And they provided a lesson for Democrats and other Trump opponents in America. This is right here, again, what they're trying to encourage people to do right here could get people killed based on a premise that's made up, based on lies that they told. Like this, when you say, should people be investigated? You can't, I mean, free speech is free speech. People need to be more aware that they're being lied to. But whoever wrote this has blood on their hands if people emulate it, if they do the same thing that they're being told about here. And this isn't the only, we will continue to hear stuff like this. The only reason they're telling us about this story is so they can do this. It may seem glib to immediately interpret another country's crisis through the American political system, but the parallels between the two countries' political situations are beyond eerie. Yoon narrowly defeated Lee in 2022 with just under 50% of the vote. Oh, like they want to tell you Trump won this time. So he didn't have the mandate. It says, quote, the political novice, was it Nova? I don't know. Has been compared to the former United States President Donald Trump. Oh, so they're saying he's new to politics, is what they're saying. Just like Trump. Reported the BBC. He had to walk back a comment that the South Korean president did, that the authoritarian president, Chun Doo-hwan, which was the guy who was president before him. Oh, no, wait, I'm confused. Sorry. Okay, so the president at one point in time called someone who they're saying was an authoritarian who in the 80s massacred a bunch of protesters. Apparently their president at some point in time said he was good at politics and was forced to walk that back. That's the same stupid shit they do with Trump saying, Putin's a smart guy. Oh, Putin's a smart guy. Okay, you must be working for Russia. And it never crosses people's minds that if you treat your enemy as an idiot and give them no respect, their intelligence, their ability, and you're just casually like, everybody's stupid, I dominate, then you're probably going to get destroyed because you're not paying attention. Because these people are actually, you can be both bad and a murderer, a mass murderer, and still be an intelligent person who understands military strategies. But to point that out is apparently treason. And so they're saying this guy's just like Trump. He loves killers and mass murderers. Yoon's victory, analysts told the New York Times, was more of a referendum on his liberal predecessor's failures than an endorsement of Mr. Yoon. Same thing they're saying about Trump. It's crazy. This is what I'm talking about, where they don't actually care about full context of stories. They only care about pulling out the details they can make parallels to what's going on here and then use to further the overarching agenda. Increasing inequality and rising housing prices stoked voter discontent with both politicians and immigrants. Yoon wooed many young men angry at feminists and the Me Too movement. Oh, they had one over there. And in office, he has frequently called his critics communist and the media fake news. And then it says, sound familiar? Of course it does, because that was the objective of this bullshit article. And then it says, contrast the 6 hours it took for South Koreans to block the demise of their democracy. Their democracy was 6 hours away from crumbling, but the liberal gays over there, the purple-haired baristas over there stopped it. Contrast that to the aftermath of January 6th. It took 5 days for House Democrats to introduce articles of impeachment after January 6th. Though the articles had 218 co-sponsors guaranteeing its passage, the vote wasn't held until 2 days after that. The impeachment trial didn't take place until, as I said, 5 weeks after the attempted, quote, insurrection. There was no attempted insurrection. And 3 weeks after Trump had left office. The delay gave conservatives the time to consolidate a defense, blah, blah, blah. And it goes on to say, now Trump will return to the White House, and thanks to the Supreme Court, with sweeping new protections from criminal prosecution. Huh. That sounds familiar, too. Oh, Hunter Biden. Right. Oh, and preemptive pardons. But that's because they're fighting for democracy. They need protection, of course. I shouldn't even bring that up. Who am I, Hitler, bringing up something like that? God, I need to take a shower after a comment like that. He's returning to the White House and has those sweeping protections. It turns out, though, in other words, that a united opposition, swiftly and decisively rebutting would-be authoritarians, works better than taking a couple of weeks and hoping it works out for the best. Listen, I mean, these appeals are drastic here. Somebody's reading this, they're sitting at home, and they're going, I got to do something. Not everybody, but the most radical. These things are intended to harden the ones that are almost all the way radicalized and to compel to action the ones that are, which is a small percentage, but a small percentage can cause the impact that they can use for their stories and narratives. For all the similarities between Yoon and Trump, one difference between the two countries is that while South Korea's Democratic Party controlled the legislative branch in the crucial hours and days after the attack on their capital, Republicans still held the Senate. Not until January 20th, when Kamala Harris was sworn in as vice president, did Democrats take both chambers. Wow, and nothing happened. Everybody was okay, right? The authoritarian dictator went back to his private life. There's another more crucial difference, however. South Korean leaders appreciate that democracy is a fragile thing. It's surely no coincidence that leaders in South Korea and Brazil, both of which experienced military dictatorships in living memory, resolutely rejected attacks on their democratic systems. Oh, so it's, look, Americans, you don't know what an authoritarian takeover looks like. They do. Okay, that's why you were terrible at stopping it, even though it never happened. That's why you were terrible at stopping the thing over here that never actually happened. As evidenced by the fact that for the past 4 years, the Democratic president has been in office. Nevertheless, you need to listen to these people who know what authoritarianism looks like. Because you're under the impression that it must look like a president who, after being told he lost an election, steps down and goes and plays golf, okay? It doesn't look like that. It looks like when that president comes back into office, even though that's not what happened here. It's full of shit, these people. It's no coincidence that the leaders of both of those countries experienced those dictatorships resolutely. I said that, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Yeah. But for most Americans, particularly those in power, a U.S. without a democracy is unthinkable. The Jim Crow regime and other undemocratic systems in the U.S. history are omitted from such a rosy assessment. No, they're not. All they do is talk about Jim Crow. All they do is call everything Jim Crow 2.0. Like, how many? If I had $1 for every time I heard something harmless called Jim Crow 2.0 over the past 4 years, seriously, I'd probably have tens of thousands of dollars. I'm not even exaggerating. Stacey Abrams can't speak a sentence without saying Jim Crow 2.0. Ma'am, here's your order. Is everything okay? Oh, the burger was a little Jim Crow 2.0 with that undercooking of it. Okay, racist? How about a discount or a refund or a free chocolate cake? It's so ridiculous. That mistaken confidence, American saps. That mistaken confidence saps a desperately needed sense of urgency. Trump's anti-democratic actions are not a fever that will eventually break. They are a disease that must be speedily remedied. Democrats did hold the quickest impeachment and trial in history, but it was not quick enough. How is it not quick enough? He left office. The lesson here, they say, is that the next time Trump transgresses the boundaries of the democratic system and the Democrats have a chance to hold him accountable, they must proceed as quickly as possible. And it concludes by saying, the time will come when Trump and his minions attack democracy again. They cannot help themselves. And on that day, Democrats must be ready to act swiftly to defend democracy and impose accountability that Americans demand. Just fold up on yourself, whoever wrote that article. Okay. So, yeah, that's the feel of almost every news story that we're seeing right now about everything. And again, I know it doesn't work for you or me or a lot of people, but when every information people encounter about what's going on in the world that they can't experience firsthand is almost exactly like that in theme and feel and consequence on themselves, because they see themselves as the victims of this. Then they start to see that in everything that they see on screens and also in the real world. Their interpretations of life become skewed through that lens, and that's how you get all these viral videos of people screaming at others because they've lost it and stuff like that. So I've got to go because I got to set up the other stream we're going to do in about 30 minutes. So we will be back in 30 minutes. Ian will be joining me. Thanks for letting me test out my technology again. After the breakdown, everything appears to have worked. And we'll do it again shortly. Thank you, guys. We will talk to you shortly. 8:45, we'll be back. You guys have a fantastic rest of your next 33 minutes. See y'all later.